What's up everybody, and welcome to a new video series. And in this series we're gonna go over my notes for Visual Studio Code, or VS Code for short. And if you want to check out those notes yourself, then you can go to this GitHub repo here and download them. And here, by the way, I've also linked to a video where I explain how I structure my notes, because there is a certain structure to them. Okay, so this is how you download the notes. Now, what are the topics that we are going to cover in this series? Namely, the topics are the title bar, the activity bar, and then within the activity bar, the explorer, search, source control, debugger, and extensions. And at the end of the series, we're also going to cover the Jupyter extension. So those are the topics within the activity bar. And then we're going to cover the editor, the panel, and the status bar. So those are the main components of the UI. And after that, we're also going to cover some miscellaneous topics, and those would be the settings, UI customizations, and keyboard shortcuts. So those are the topics that we're going to cover in this series. But in this first video, we're just going to go over some general notes about VS Code. So what is VS Code? VS Code is simply a code editor, and it's free, it's cross-platform, so you can use it on Windows, Linux, or macOS. And I'm, by the way, on Windows, and it's maintained by Microsoft. So there are monthly updates with new features and bug fixes. And on their website, they also have a section for these updates. So they list here these monthly updates, and they describe what features they've added in the respective update and what bugs they've fixed. And those are basically already the main notes that I wanted to cover. So now let's go over some side notes. And the first one is about the official documentation. Namely, if you go back to this website here is also a section for the documentation. And these docs were the main resource that I used to create my notes. So they are also the main resource for this tutorial series. And one thing that I want to mention here is this tree navigation here on the left hand side. Namely, in my opinion, this could be separated into 4 different parts. So the first part here is setup and getting started. So setup is about setting up Visual Studio Code on different systems, and get started provides high-level information to quickly get up and running with VS Code. So that's the first part. Then the second part here provides information how to actually use the editor. So for example, how to configure it, how to edit code, how to build, debug, test, source control, terminal, and GitHub Copilot. So it's the second part. The third part then here provides language specific information. So here in this first section, there's a general overview, and then short introductions to different programming languages. And then for some selected languages like Python or TypeScript, for example, there are more detailed information. And then lastly, the last part is here at the bottom. Those are miscellaneous topics like container tools, data science, intelligent apps, and so on. Okay, so this is this left hand, this tree navigation. And then another thing that I want to mention is here this input field, where you can search then across the whole documentation. Okay, so those were the notes that I want to mention with regards to the official documentation. So now let's get to the second side note, which is checking the current version of your installed VS Code. Therefore, simply go here to the menu bar and click Help, and then About. So this opens this window, and here it says version, or I have version 1.101.1. So that's the version that this tutorial series is based upon. Okay, so then the next side note is the Insider, or something called Insiders Edition. Namely, if we go back to the website and here to the main page, so here you can download the regular version, but here below the button, there's something called an Insiders Edition. And if I click that, then we get to this site. And what is special about this Insiders Edition is that you get the latest release each day. So you have daily updates. Because With the regular version, you just have monthly updates, but with this Insiders Edition, you have daily updates. So this is especially interesting for early adopters. However, one thing to keep in mind is that because there are these daily updates, this can sometimes lead to a broken build. But this shouldn't be that big of a problem because this Insiders Edition is installed side by side with the stable version. So if there's a broken build, then you can fall back on the stable version. Okay, so that's that side note. The next one would be this welcome page. Namely, if I open a new window of VS Code, what happens is that you get here this welcome page. And if you don't want that, simply uncheck this box here at the bottom. This will then adjust the respective settings. So if I now open the window again, we don't get this welcome page. And another way of doing that is to simply open the settings and then here search for Startup Editor. And then here you have some more options that you can specify. Okay, so that's my notes for the welcome page. So the next side note is VS Code versus Code OSS versus VSCodium. Namely, VS Code is actually only built on open source, but it's not open source itself. And we can check that by going to this website again, to the main page, and here we can check the license. And here, as you can see, this is a Microsoft software license, and this is not open source. And here it also says this license applies to the Visual Studio Code product. However, the source code, which is available here on GitHub, this one is licensed under the MIT license, and this one is open source. And this here is then actually on GitHub page, this is code, this is called Code OSS. So now then you might ask yourself, okay, what's the difference between Code OSS and Visual Studio Code? And the thing is that what Microsoft does, they take Code OSS and then they add some specific customizations to that and publish that then as Visual Studio Code. And if you want to know what those customizations are, then you can go here to this wiki page and here search for difference. And then you can get to this page where it says the difference between the repository and Visual Studio Code. And some of those differences are, for example, then icons, the product name, and the documentation. Then also the Visual Studio Marketplace integration. And then another big thing is this telemetry. So if that's something that bothers you, what you can do about that is to go to the settings again and then search for telemetry. And then here you can specify the telemetry level. So you can turn it completely off or just report crashes and errors or leave everything on. So, and another side note that I want to mention here is that extensions might collect their own usage data. So in that case, then you have to check the documentation for the respective extension if they are collecting any usage data. So this doesn't apply to extensions. And now, then if that still bothers you and you don't want VS Code and you want the open source version, what you can do is you can build Code OSS from source. Therefore, let's go back to this page here, to the GitHub repo from Code OSS, and here they have then a link to how to build and run from source. So that's one option. The other option would be to simply use VSCodium because they've already built Code OSS from source. Okay, so that's the difference between VS Code, Code OSS, and VSCodium. Okay, so now let's get to the last side note, which are the additional topics. So those are topics that are not covered in detail in these notes, but I just wanted to mention them. So those are then the command line interface. So this enables you to control how VS Code is launched. Then There's GitHub Copilot. So those are GitHub Copilot features that you can use directly within VS Code. Then we have profiles. So profiles are useful because VS Code can be highly personalized via the extensions, settings, and UI customizations. And profiles enable you then to create sets of customizations. So you can create profiles with specific extensions, settings, or UI customizations, and then you can quickly switch between those profiles, or you can also share them with other people. So that are profiles. Then we have remote development. So this enables you to develop your project locally, while the actual code is stored and executed on a remote server. Then we have snippets. So those enable you to quickly enter repeating code patterns instead of typing them. And then lastly, we have tasks. So tasks are useful because there are lots of tools that allow you to automate specific processes, and tasks enable you then to run these tools or any other automated command line processes directly within VS Code. Okay, so those are the additional topics. And with that, now we have covered all the notes that I want to cover with respect to VS Code in general. And with that, we have now reached the end of the video. And in the next video, then we're going to talk about the title bar. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.